Hello, Manhattan High School. My name is Kari Keaton-Humes, and I'm the District's Drug and Alcohol Prevention Coordinator and Counselor. I am here today to share with you some information about the Kansas Communities That Care Survey. We're going to go over some Manhattan High School specific data that I hope will be interesting to you. Let me give you some facts first. If you're not familiar with Kansas Communities That Care, which most of you probably are because you will have just administered this survey to 10th and 12th graders. So any of you that had a 10th and 12th grade advisory that have one, you would have administered this survey last week to those students. So here's some survey facts for you. The survey was developed by prevention science researchers at the University of Washington. It has been administered annually in Kansas since 1994, and our school district has participated since 1995. So we have coming up close to 30 years worth of data that we can look back at. The survey is sponsored by the Kansas Department of Aging and Disability Services. The survey is free of charge in the state of Kansas. It requires written consent of parents, so we collected that during central enrollment, and in addition to collecting it during that time, we also sent out messages through Parent Square and Infinite Campus, just not only as a reminder that their students would be taking the survey, but also just to make sure that they remembered and they have the option to opt out if they would like to. The survey does require district superintendent registration. All responses from students are confidential and anonymous, so there's no way to trace any of the information inputted by any students. Data is reported by grade, which is 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th, and those are the grades that participate in the survey. Really, this survey and the data allows us to track trends over a long period of time. It includes both risk and protective factors, so those things that put kids at risk for substance abuse and other high-risk behaviors, but also it asks questions about the things that protect kids, so things like having an opportunity for activities at school or feeling like they have a voice, within their peer group. Those things are protective factors, so those are addressed as well. We do use this data when we're seeking funding for programming, and it really does allow our district to assess current programming and identify gaps in services. That way we can make sure we're putting programs into place that will address the issues that we have. There are optional modules, so there's the core survey that districts take, but then there's 4 optional modules. In our school district, we participate in the optional suicide and depression module and the optional family module. There are 2 other modules, gender identity and sexual orientation, and our district does not include those in our survey. So let's talk really quick about validity and reliability. The survey contains 3 validity checks that are built into the survey to identify responses that are not honest or patterns that demonstrate a lack of attention to the survey question. So, lack of attention, that student you're worried about that maybe is just going through and just clicking the same thing for every answer. 3 of the checks are students indicated they were not honest at all in completing the survey, because it does ask them that question. Students that indicated they'd used a non-existent drug, so there is a fake drug that's throughout the survey, and if a student reports that they've used that, then the surveyors know that they're not telling the truth. And then the students that went through and reported unrealistically frequent use of substances. Every year, about 4 to 5% of surveys are found to be invalid. And one of the other things is that the results from the Communities That Care survey are really consistent with some trends in national surveys. So the Monitoring the Future survey is one big national survey, and the results really do match what those surveys say. So I'm going to share with you the 2023 Kansas Communities That Care results for Manhattan High School. This is not going to be all of the data, but it's going to be kind of a snapshot of it for you. Keep in mind that this is the results from the survey students would have taken in November of 22. So the survey kids just took last week. We will not have that data back until sometime in the spring. So just keep in mind that that would have been last November. So this is our participation rate by grade. I'm really proud to say that in our district we have exceptionally high participation rates compared to a lot of the state of Kansas. Participation rate is really critical because if we don't have enough students, then we don't get any data. So there is a minimum number that have to answer each question for us to be provided with that data. It is normal that 12th graders, 40.8% versus 64.6% of 10th graders. The lower the grade, the higher the participation. Now, keep in mind, I told you that parents could opt their student out of the survey during central enrollment, but it is also a voluntary survey for students. So students, when they logged onto the survey, they have the option to opt out themselves at that time. And really, at any time during the survey, they can choose to stop answering questions. So we aren't forcing any kids to do it. And I think that's part of why, as kids get older, that opt-out rate probably gets higher unless kids are completing the survey. So this question, how often do you feel that the schoolwork you are assigned is meaningful and important? And this is one of those protective factors I was talking about, where students have those things that sort of buffer them, which reduces the chances they're going to get involved with substances and other high-risk behaviors. So 14.3% of our students reported often, yes, they feel like schoolwork they're assigned is meaningful and important. Only 6% said never, which I think is great. And I want you to remember, too, when you're looking at this, that this is student perception. And so this is how they actually feel. So it's not, is the work meaningful and important, because I believe the schoolwork that you're assigning is all meaningful and important. This is really just their perception of that. So this question addresses bullying. So what do adults do when they see bullying at your school? And this graph gives you a comparison with the last 3 years. You can see that the percentage of students who report that what they see adults do is stop it and tell everyone to leave has increased, which is excellent. Also, the number who say stop it and solve the problem. So I think what this really means is what students see is that the adults at Manhattan High School do intervene when they see bullying. I think it's great that those numbers go up, and that's really, really a positive trend. So this one, during the past 12 months, how often have you either been bullied at school or seen someone being bullied at school? So this is the percentage of kids at Manhattan High that responded at least once. So you can see the numbers of kids reporting that they've been bullied and that they've seen someone being bullied have both increased. Could that be heightened awareness, right? We've talked to kids a lot more about bullying behavior. And so just like on the last slide where they see that adults intervene more, perhaps part of this is their perception that now they're looking for those behaviors. I do believe there's also been a trend upward in these students who report bullying themselves when they see it. And so this could be a little bit of that as well. Okay, this is the percentage of kids at Manhattan High reported, I do not feel safe at school. And what you have there is the purple, which is for our building, which is Manhattan High, and then the district, and then the state of Kansas. And so these are kids who say they don't feel safe at school. So 17.4% at Manhattan High, which matches the district overall. So those district numbers, remember, include 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th. So it includes those kids from the 2 middle school buildings as well. One thing I have tried to point out a little bit is that during those years of COVID, I think maybe kids' perception of I do not feel safe at school changed a little bit, because I wonder if they started to think about like physical health reasons they didn't feel safe at school. But either way, this is a number that we want to see trending down. We want our kids all, or most of, to feel safe at school. So again, this is just another number that we want to keep an eye on as well. Here's a chart that demonstrates 30 days substance abuse. So this is the number of kids who said they have tried these different substances at least one time in the last 30 days. And so you can see alcohol, cigarettes, marijuana, prescription drug use, and vaping. Those are the substances that are included in this chart. And you've got your 3-year comparison, so you can see we've seen a real decrease in alcohol and in cigarettes and in marijuana and in vaping, which I think is excellent. The one tick we're seeing upwards is prescription drug use, and I think a lot of that correlates with fentanyl and opioids and some of the struggles that we're having. And later on in this presentation, I will share with you what our response to those things have been, but I do want you to see that this is sort of the reported numbers. Now, even though those numbers are trending down, which is really great news, we do still have a significant number of kids who are reporting that they're using those substances. So even though it's trending down, it is still areas of concern. So this is the perceived risk of harm, and it's important to remember that if kids don't think certain drugs are dangerous or harmful, they're more likely to use. So it's part of the reason we really look closely at perceived risk of harm, because what we want is for kids to know that substances are harmful to them. And we will also talk closer to the end of this presentation about what does work and doesn't work when it comes to drug and alcohol prevention, and really raising the perception of harm is critical if we want less kids to use substances. So what you can see from this three-year comparison, and then you've got those same 5 substance categories, that these are the kids who said, nope, I don't think there's any risk in using these drugs. And I mean, really what we see here is that the perceived risk of marijuana has gone up. So there are more kids who don't think marijuana is dangerous. That's probably for multiple reasons, right? Different messaging that they're getting and what they hear. But also we can see that there's an increase with vaping and prescription drug use in that area as well. So they piloted a few questions on the Kansas Communities That Care survey last year, that November 2022, which is our 23 data. They piloted a few fentanyl questions, which I think is great because I think we need to know what kids know about fentanyl. So they did not break this down by school district. So all the other data I've shared is Manhattan High and USD 383 specific. This is specific to Riley County. So it would be all the school districts that participated in the survey in our county. And I think probably after this, they probably will add those questions to the survey permanently. So we'll get a better breakdown for our building. But still, it's kind of interesting to look at these. What you have here is community, which again is Riley County, and then the state of Kansas. And what they asked kids was, how much have you heard about fentanyl? So do kids know about it? And these were their responses. I've not heard about fentanyl. I've heard about fentanyl, but I do not know what it is. And I've heard about fentanyl, and I know what it is. And this is really great information for us. It can help direct our education when we're talking to kids about the use of fentanyl, because what we want to make sure is they've heard about it, they know what it is, and they know that it's dangerous to their health. So we can see that 50.6% of kids said, I've heard about it and I know what it is. But there's that percentage that either hasn't heard about it or they've heard about it, but they don't know what it is. And if they don't know what it is, that means they don't know how dangerous it is either. Here it is by grade. Keep in mind, it's Riley County by grade, not Manhattan High. And so you can see those same responses. You know, the blue, I've heard about fentanyl, I know what it is. So you can see by grade level that goes up. So we know that they're hearing more at, 10th and 12th grade than they are at 6th or 8th grade, which for us, we know we need to put a little more attention and education into 6th and 8th grade, and then kind of keep up with what we're doing with high school, because what we really want is we don't want kids to be in that gray. I have not heard about fentanyl, right? We want to make sure they know it's dangerous, and they know they can encounter fentanyl without knowing they're even getting it. So these are students that answered, I've not heard about fentanyl. And so this is, how much do you think people risk harming themselves? So again, this is that perception. Do you think it's dangerous? Do you not think it's dangerous, right? We really need kids to think it's great risk to them to use fentanyl, whether it's accidental or on purpose. They're specific about that in the question. So we can see 83.6% say they believe it is a great risk. The goal is 100%, right? And so that's what we're looking for. But we can see we're pretty close to the state, maybe a little bit higher, but fairly close. So how much do you think people risk harming themselves if they take fentanyl accidentally or on purpose? And then this one is just broken down by grade, so the same thing. And we really see the same that we saw before, which is that, the lower grades clearly have less education, and we need to start focusing a little bit more effort in that area.